Thank you guys for coming. I'm honored that you wanted to come and listen to me speak, and I'm honored you guys didn't drink so much yesterday at the free event that you can still make it here this morning. Have any of you guys heard me speak in person before? Raise your hand. Thanks, Joel. Okay. Have any of you guys heard me give this specific talk before? Okay. Somebody just said, "Who are you?" We'll get there. Okay. Oh, wait. Do I not have the... Oh, shoot. Most of my presentations start with a picture of my kids, so I'm going to just tell you a story real quick. I forgot to put that slide in. I have 3 kids, 18, 12, and 9. Thing 1's a boy, thing 2's a boy, thing 3 is a girl. They all have my sense of humor. My wife hates that. They are bullies. I'm getting bald up here. My 18-year-old calls it the Charlie Brown Island. And I said recently, maybe a year ago, I'm not losing my hair. I wear it in different places now. And my 12-year-old says, I know, because when we're in the pool, the stuff on your back does this. These are the people that I care most about in the world. You raising your hand and asking a question is not going to hurt my feelings. I would rather not make it all the way through the slides and us have a discussion or clarify something. If you're missing the point on something, I'm not doing a good job explaining it, and probably somebody else isn't catching it either. So please raise your hand. If I don't see your hand, just say, "Hey, Jake," and I'll stop and we'll talk about it. I would rather us have a discussion. This presentation is more about how we vet clients and how we talk to clients and how we manage the pre-construction side of things to get people to want to work with us than like telling people what high performance is or convincing people to work with us from a like, we do this better than anybody else standpoint. So it really is a discussion process with clients and a vetting process with clients. And it could be that you have something that you're like, yeah, but that doesn't work in my market because of this. So I'm okay with having a discussion about it. Does that make sense? Okay, not everybody at once. Does anybody have a client that has ever asked for low maintenance? So I'm going to start simple. Oh, who am I? I didn't answer that question. My name is Jake Bruton. I'm a builder in Columbia, Missouri. We also have a second office in Kansas City. Columbia is in the dead middle of the state. I-70 runs from St. Louis to Kansas City. Columbia is about 150,000 people. I grew up in Columbia. I bought the family business in 2007. Aarow Building's been in business for 41 years. When I bought the business, we were a renovation and repair and commercial turnover company. Now I would describe us as a mostly custom home, high-performance builder. We do some renovation and repair. This year will be the 3rd year that we've been in the Kansas City market, and Kansas City is going to surpass Columbia in revenue this year. So we have 2 operations, basically. Kansas City is about 2 hours from my house. So I'm in Kansas City 1 or 2 days a week. I'm in Columbia the rest of the week. I do this sort of thing about 20 to 30% of my time. So I have someone else that runs my company. My entire company is here, so I believe in what you guys are doing as well. So not only am I here teaching, but I asked everybody that works for me, except for PELLA, our office manager, to come this week. So they're all sitting in other classrooms right now, assuming they didn't drink too much last night. I think I saw all of them but one this morning, the person who runs my company. So I think everybody's here this morning sitting in another classroom, so I agree with what you guys are doing. I think that there's a lot of knowledge to be gained this week, not just from the Build Show folks, but there are a bunch of other people here presenting this week too. So does that answer your question? Okay. So I'm going to start with a couple of this one was fun. This house was, I think, 4 years old when a client called us. We had done a bunch of work on this house. We didn't build the house. We demoed 2 of these bow roofs, or these metal roofs over top of bow windows without tools. We just pulled things apart by hand because they were rotting so bad. Oh, I fell in March skiing with my kids, and I just got this fixed 3 weeks ago. I punched a bone through my labrum. I had arthroscopy. It's getting better. I still have to sleep sitting up. They told me to sleep in a recliner, and my wife was sitting in the room, and she said, "We have a more modern aesthetic than that. We don't have a recliner." So we demoed all of this by hand, and it was just water intrusion. It was a roof that was getting a tiny bit of water in from the top side, we think, from a window that was leaking above. You can see how there's water above the roof. But also, more importantly, there was a bunch of air leaking in here, and they were getting condensation that was, or air that was leaking in that was causing condensation in an uninsulated space. So this house was a $1.2 million house, and it lasted 4 years. So not durable, right? From what most people in my home market of Columbia would say is the best builder in town, at the time at least. This house, this gutter is here, so here, missing a kick-out flashing. This is one of my favorite clients. This story makes him sound super spiteful, and he might be, but he won the house in the divorce 25 years ago. They've had water problems since they moved in. He's never been able to afford to fix it until about 6 or 7 years ago because he could barely afford to stay in the house, but he was not going to sell the house and let his wife know, or his ex-wife know, that he had to sell it. He was like, "I don't care. Every time it rains, I go downstairs and I sweep it out the door." But I was not going to let that B word know that I had to move out of this house and let her win. He's a super nice guy, except for like those 4 sentences that he told me when I first met him. But not durable just by the fact that it was missing 1 flashing. And he had never called anybody because he didn't think he'd be able to afford to fix it. But it was that 1 flashing was causing leaks in the house for 25 years. I don't think you can see, yeah, you can't see it on there. One of those house wraps has a builder's name on it, but you can't read it. So this is a brand new house, obviously. This is a house that my wife called and said, "Hey, our friends, their house is going up around the corner from the Hilltop house." This is probably 2020. "It's almost done. You should drive by and see it. They're really happy with it so far. They got cabinets and floors this week." And I was like, "Oh, they got cabinets and floors? They're missing WRB in places, and there's a couple places where they don't have windows. And they have cabinets and floors, and it's the middle of summer, and it's humid." And so I called them and said, I didn't stop because the builder was there, and I didn't want him to think that I was like poking my head around. "Do you really have cabinets and floors already?" And they were like, "Yeah, we're moving in like 2 weeks. We're just waiting on a couple windows." And so I went home and like sent them an email and said, "Here would be my concerns if that was my house." And they emailed back and they were like, "Your list of concerns all seems valid. How concerned?" And I was like, "I think you should call someone. Like, I don't want to be involved. I don't want you to use my name because I know this person, and I don't want to be like pointing the finger at someone that I run into constantly, but I would call a private inspector if I were you guys." They called a private inspector from another market. He came in, and the builder ended up writing them a check for $150,000 to get everything fixed before they closed, and they fired him because they had mold in the house already. So it was like not durable before they even finished it. So, durables, part 1 for energy efficiency. One of my guys came back from did anybody go to the BS and Beer event last night? One of my young carpenters who's 20 last night came back from the BS and Beer event last night. I was like, "Yeah, the architect that got up and talked was saying that like overhangs are more important than insulation." And I was like, "Yeah, I could agree with that." And he was like, "Why?" He's only been with us for like 3 or 4 months, and he's 20. This is his first construction job. And I was like, "How about we talk about this when you're not tired, and I think you might have gotten served a drink. Like, how about we don't talk about this right now, we'll talk about it tomorrow." I was like, "But it's durability, and we talk about durability all the time." And his project manager that is in charge of him was like, "I think he might have been served a drink too. We'll talk about it tomorrow, Sam." So does anybody ever try to sell energy efficiency, or do you sell cost savings? Which is it? Joel, which is it? Sorry, I pointed at you and used your name. You have to answer now. Cost savings? Okay. So it's really tough, and energy efficiency only works for nerds, and that's something that took me a really long time to figure out. I will tell you that right now we have some clients that, just open book, they're about to spend $2 million on a house. They came to us through an architect that can do passive house, but doesn't necessarily sell passive house. They're interested in it, but it's not the thing that drives their business. And they said, you know, we love the stuff that we've seen you do online. We love the stuff that these reference clients told us you do. We don't need any of that. You know, we just want a house with 2x4 walls and nice detailing. And I was like, okay, that's great. Let's sit down and have a conversation about it. And I went through what the code says about exterior insulation in our market in 2021. And they're like, oh, we didn't know that it said that. And I was like, and it says that because we're trying to reduce the risk of condensation in the wall, because if we put exterior insulation on, it warms the temperature of the wall in the cavity. Therefore, we reduce the risk of condensation because we move the dew point further out in the wall. And then we also are going to use zip sheathing, because then we have to make one less trip around the building, and we get our air tightness from that zip sheathing. And if we have better air tightness and we buy better windows, we're going to spend less money on our HVAC system. And if we take air tightness and insulation and HVAC and we make them one line item instead of 3 separate line items, I've now spent the same amount of money on those line items, and in a 30-minute conversation, now they're buying all the same stuff that we're selling to a client that came to us and said, we want passive house but not a plaque. Just by educating them. And none of the conversation was about, you'll have way lower energy bills and you'll have higher comfort. It was, this is the correct way to build a building, and these are the reasons why. If I would have just walked into the meeting and said, I can lower your energy bills, it probably would have went different in my experience. Your market might be different. In the Austin market, that's a totally different conversation most of the time. It's a forward-thinking market. The other conversation that we have quite often is health. I have the pleasure of living in a house that I built for myself. When we moved from our 1960s ranch that I had fully remodeled, I hadn't totally gutted it, but most rooms had been gutted and remodeled. Windows replaced, air sealing, most of the rooms had had insulation replaced, attic replaced, all those sorts of things. When we moved from there to the house that I built to the standards that we build, like 3 or 4 days in, I went, oh, I didn't realize I wasn't having dreams anymore at our other house. My quality of sleep was so poor that I wasn't dreaming. I thought that like I got old enough that I wouldn't have dreams anymore. That's like, I can't explain that to clients that like it's quieter, the air quality is better, which I can actually prove because we measured air quality at our last house and air quality at our new house. So I can actually make scientific claims, at least in my experience with our house. So I can say things like that from firsthand knowledge. That's tougher if you haven't built your own house to the standards that we talk about. I also can say that our air handler kicks on way less than our last house, and we have smaller equipment, and it's quieter, and things like that. So I get the ability to say I have all these firsthand stories that I can tell clients for comfort. I also can say, I know for a fact that our kids are sick less. We have a healthier house. We have cleaner air inside the house. We have filtration that's of a higher quality. I noticed that our kids got sick less when we moved into our new house. Thank you for asking a question.
Was there anything besides particulates that CO2 that is more different?
It's really just particulate matter and CO2. Yeah, it's just, we have a FUBOT, and it's the round circle of air quality, and it went from being okay to great every single day. And on the PM 2.5, PM 10, and the CO2, it's just way better every single day. Yeah.
There's also
Yes. So that's another really good point in the fact that we went from gas cooktop, gas water heater, gas furnace, to we don't even have a gas line at our new house. We have a combustion-free house, which there was a guy trying to mark utilities in our neighborhood recently, and I watched him walk around the house 3 times before I went outside, and I was like, can I help you? He's like, yeah, I'm just trying to find your gas meter. And I was like, we don't have one. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, we don't have one. And he goes, well, surely you have one. And I was like, I built the house. We do not have a single gas meter. He was like flabbergasted. Yeah?
So you're saying that the air quality is better because you don't have this combustion?
There's a real argument to be made that not burning anything inside the house helps. Obviously, if you're exhausting properly, it should take care of it, but that's a real challenge. It's not impossible, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, if you look at what the EPA was trying to do a year and a half ago, they were trying to outlaw gas cooktops, period, because if you don't turn the hood on, there's a real danger there. Non-vented gas functioning appliances are illegal on their own. There's a reason, because they put off bad things. So, yeah.
Back to the particulate.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the particulate from? When you say that, I also am thinking about materials that off-gas.
Sure.
Those are made of petrochemical oil.
Mm-hmm.
LDL fluorine.
Yeah. Question is, what are all the particulate matter from? All sorts of things. There's all sorts of things that you could bring into the house, which, thankfully for us, we really didn't buy any new furniture when we moved into the house, so we didn't really introduce anything. We did buy 2 new couches, but we put them in our garage at our old house for 6 months before we moved in, so we let them off gas. But we're not getting anything from outside because we're filtering all the air that comes in. Our house had a .43 ACH 50, so it was the air that gets into our house. We don't really have that much natural leakage. Everything that comes in runs through our ERV, and it has HEPA filtration on it. So we're not getting stuff from outside. Where the last house, it was 7.5 or 7.8 ACH 50. So anything that was happening outside could come in. From pollen to brake dust to asphalt plant down the street, whatever it might be, all the things that could happen outside could just find their way in.
And the ERV is the first barrier?
The ERV is our first line of defense, yes.
Radon too?
We do have radon mitigation, although we're a slab on grade, so we're low risk. Yep. The other thing that we have at our new house is we also have random point of use air filtration in like standalone units that we didn't have at our last house, and they're just there to catch pet hair. We have 3 cats, 2 dogs, and a rabbit, and 3 children, and a hermit crab. And 24/7 occupancy because our Columbia office is at my house too. So when the kids and my wife leave, there are people above the garage working. So we have a very busy house. There are only 2 charts. I apologize. This one's not as informative as this one. So the city of Columbia, where I live, screwed up and kept sending me the electric data on the 1965 house that I moved out of. When we moved to our next house, they didn't send me the bill, but I kept getting the data because it was showing on my login. So I didn't tell them because I wanted to see it because I knew I could make this chart. So this is kilowatt hours per square foot of electric usage, which is how Passive House tells you have to judge whether or not you meet your Passive House now. So this is, the tall one is the 1960s house that I moved out of. The other one is the new house that we built for ourselves. Just on the most basic level, you can see the energy usage difference, kilowatt hours per square foot of electricity. Again, this works for nerds. I'm a nerd. This works for nerds. This works for Joel and I.
Were you all electric in the older home?
No, the older house had gas for cooking, for water heating, and for conditioning, and it still is that. Yeah. So here's how it breaks down though too. National average kilowatt hour per square foot of usage for homes is 916 kilowatt hours per month. The national average home size, single family detached, is 2261. If you applied that number to my house is quite large because we have the offices. We have 3,000 about for our family, and we have 1,200 square feet for the office, so we have like a 4,300 square foot house. It's big. We would be using 1742. That's about an average bill. We use about half as much as what a national average house would. I can show that and people get it. What I normally say in one of our first phone calls is, well, our house is 24/7 occupancy. It's about 4,300 square feet. It's all electric. Our bill runs about $120 to $145 a month. And I try to just put it in there so that they hear it, because most of the people that we're talking to already live in a decent sized house. They probably live in a 3,000 square foot house with their 2 kids, and they're probably paying $500 a month to heat and cool their house. And I'm paying $120 to $150. I don't like Frank Gehry. So we're defining here what a high-performance home is. The first one was durable. The second one is efficient. The third one is architecturally significant. Architecturally significant is beautiful, but we say architecturally significant because I have a degree in art. I'm asking for participation on this one. Anyone want to venture a guess? The difference between an old home and a historic home? Don't answer, Travis. One of my guys is in the back. He knows the answer.
You always say that the historic home is something that somebody cares about.
Yeah, whether or not somebody gives a crap about it. There are plenty of old houses that get torn down every day of the week that nobody cares about, and there are plenty of houses every day of the week that people fight over because they care about them. So if we're going to build a house that is durable, and we're going to build a house that's efficient, we also want it to be something that people care about long term. So if it's ugly, they're also not going to want to care about it. We have to also make it pretty. That's part of the equation. Sometimes people forget about that, especially on the energy efficiency side of things, in my opinion. Also, those 3 things, durable, efficient, architecturally significant, are on the banner of our website if you go there. They're like our core values in that order. If it falls apart, you're not going to want to stay in it, right? It costs an arm and a leg to maintain it. If water gets in every time it rains. If it costs an arm and a leg to live there, energy-wise, you're not going to want to stay there. And if it's ugly, your kids aren't going to want to inherit it. So I think of everybody reaching out to our firm as an audition process. When I first bought the company, it was, thank God you called, I'd love to do your job. Like if the phone rang, I was like, great, this is an opportunity for us to make money. And now everything is, thank you for calling, this is an opportunity for you to audition to work with us. And that's not because we have a backlog of work, because we don't have a huge backlog, and it's not because we're millionaires, because we're not. It's because this is the way that you should also think about it too. Because every person that calls your business is not your client. In fact, the majority of them that reach out to you should probably not be your client. And I'll tell you, one of the most apt things that I've heard Steve Basic say is, there are a handful of people that it would probably be better if you wrote them a check for $500 the first time you talked to them, because it costs you less money. Also, I had a conversation with a builder yesterday on the bus back from the home store that we both are going through the same thing, and we both acknowledged your gut is probably normally right. If there's a reason why you think you shouldn't work with them, that's probably the reason you shouldn't work with them. Okay. A few years ago, I had a little old lady call the office, and I was the one that answered the phone, and she asked about us repairing her deck, and I explained to her that we don't really do deck repairs, and she said, well, you know, I've been calling a bunch of people, and nobody wants to help me out with it, and I just can't find somebody to help me. And she sounded like my grandmother. That's not my grandmother. PowerPoint does a bunch of AI things now, and that was easy to find. And I felt sorry for her, and I said, you know what, I can't tell you that I'll do it, but I'll come and take a look at it and see if I can help you, just because she sounded like my grandma on the phone. I said, give me your address. And she gave me her address, and I was like, ah, crap, that's like an hour from my office. I should have then said no, but then I was like, I already told her I'd come and take a look at it. It doesn't mean that I have to help her. I'll just go and take a look. So I drove all the way there, and I pulled in our driveway, and it was a mobile home. We also don't work on mobile homes. And it was one of those wrought iron set of steps that you slide the 2x6s through, and it was just like collapsing on its side. And I was like, this is absolutely nothing that we would mess with on any day of the week ever. And so I talked to her for a few minutes, and I like grabbed some stuff out of my truck and like propped it back up. I called the lumber yard that was close and got her a phone number and like gave her a phone number. And I got back in my truck, and I was like driving back to the office, and I was like, I have now wasted like 2.5 hours on this one phone call that I knew from the beginning probably wasn't for us just based off the job. But I have to figure out how to not waste 2.5 hours on something that was clearly not for us. I need to figure out how to get to know as quick as possible. So when I got back to the office, I was like, I'm going to define what our clients are. And I had never done this before. So if you don't have a definition of what your client is, you probably should, because then you know the easiest way to say no. This was the first day that I wrote down, can we make money? Can we do it? Because there are jobs that we get phone calls for that we're like, we can't do this. And then, are they nice? I might spend 2.5 years with you. If you're not nice, I don't want to work with you. Who here is working for not nice people currently? Would you work for them again if you had the choice? Here was the second criteria that I came up with a couple weeks later. Personality fit is different than nice, because I've worked with some nice people that I really didn't like by the end of it, even though they were nice. Do their values align? I don't mean like politically or religiously. I mean like, do they see value in the same things that we see value in? Which isn't it doesn't have to be a lock. I just would like it to be close. Timeline, budget. So we also kind of shorthandedly define when people go, well, what's your ideal job? I always say, we don't have an ideal job. We want clients that value what we bring to the table and have an appropriate budget for what they want. That's it. Because if you have $100 to spend on a project and only $100, and then we spend $110, you're not going to be happy. But if you have $200 and we're only going to budget for $100 worth of a project and we spend $110, you'll be perfectly happy. So having an appropriate budget makes you happy when we go over a little. Maxing the budget and being stressed from day one about we're going to spend 101 when we were planning on spending 100 and you have to figure out where to come up with that extra dollar ruins it from the beginning. I'll be honest with you. We have a client right now that we're building a house for that we are like 28% over budget, which is way worse than we've ever had before. And they are not upset with us. They are informed about what's going on. They understand why it's like that. We've apologized. Most of it is out of our hands. There's a little bit of culpability on our part. We missed the numbers a little bit on some stuff. But they have the money to pay for it, and they're not worried about it. And we had a job at the beginning of the year that we went 4% over budget. And they were like, we're going to sue your pants off. You're ruining our life. And the 4% was small, and it was a small job. Wildly different. One of them had the appropriate budget to do what they wanted, and they weren't strapping themselves from cash from the beginning. And the other one probably didn't have all the money to pay for the base model before we went 4% over budget. And I think 4% is well within, because we always tell people, take our number, add 15%, and then we'll be fine even if we get into like haywire, because we're not fixed fee, we're cost plus, and we tell people here's a ballpark.
Let's say you got a customer, you got the requirements and the bills, call it 1.2 million, their budget's 1. What things would you eliminate but still keep within your, your build parameters, your house design? Are there certain things that you can bend on or eliminate and still get a high performance home?
So the question is, what are the things that you would cut and still keep for a high-performance home? So I don't compromise on durability. So we focus on water first, always. We can't have anything that's going to cause us a warranty issue from that standpoint. Next is air sealing. We can't have air leakage, and we have to have quality windows. And then after that, we'll go to whatever the cheapest insulation is we can buy right off the bat. Yeah, I mean, for us, because I'm not going to have to worry about warranties on cabinets probably. Those sorts of things. But it's a dial, right? You also have code on your side, like the 2021 code. And even if your market's not operating on 2021 or 2024, I think there is a perfectly valid reason for you to say, look, I understand the municipality we're building in still operates on 2012. It's been updated this many times since then, and the updates have to do with new technology and new science or better understanding of what's going on with our environment, whatever it may be. This is the way that everyone is recommending and acknowledging we should be building houses. I understand they're only enforcing 2012. This is what they thought was right in 2012. This is what we should be doing now, and bring the code book in front of the clients and say, this is what we would be required to do if the municipality was paying attention. We should be doing this. If you do that, 2021 in most markets, not necessarily in Austin or Houston, climate zone 1 and 2, most markets, it's not that far off a passive house.
I can see that even being a selling feature in the future, because some markets may be well behind 2021, and you got to resell, and you have that as a benefit.
Yeah.
Way ahead.
Yeah. Was there another one? Yeah.
I was going to ask, does your OHP change from remodel to new construction, or complexities or whatever else?
Yeah, remodels are a different thing. We try to do our best, but we don't get to do a lot of this on remodels. It's just part of it, yeah. We try to push it when it's appropriate. If we're doing additions, the additions get a lot of this, but it doesn't happen all the time. Yeah, priorities are different on remodels a lot of the time. We get some retrofits. If we're touching envelope, we do the things that we find important. We don't compromise on water and things like that. But energy efficiency isn't the same conversation on remodels for now, for most people. Yeah. Yeah.
When you get to know, when you finally are like, man, this is not my client, and you've gotten to know in your head, how do you talk to them so that you don't shut the door on future projects?
If they're not your client, there's not a future project with them, right? Like they're not going to be your client 6 months from now if you know they're not your client right now.
Unless it was a budget issue, strictly budget.
Sorry, I was phrasing it from when you get to know them. Yeah. If it's a budget issue, then that's a simple one. You just have to be honest and say, I don't think your budget aligns with what we provide, and I understand that it's probably not going to be the right fit for us. Like I don't sugarcoat things, and I just try to be polite about how I say things. I don't beat around the bush. I don't want people walking away going, wait, why are we not working with them? Or why did he say that? Like, I just try to be very direct with people. I don't read people well. So when people say things and then they walk away and I go, wait, what did he mean by that? That bothers the hell out of me. So I always try to just go, do you understand what I'm saying? So I function that way because I don't understand it when people are trying to backdoor conversation with me. Yeah.
Off of his question, being from a small town, what about referrals, knowing that people are talking, and if you just say no to this person because you know it's not a good fit, but they know X, Y, and Z, so you almost feel like you have to do the job so that your referral.
Doing that job's still not going to help you. Doing the wrong job's still going to be the wrong job. You have the ability, I hope everybody in here understands you can always say, well, we're booked to 2030, like Matt said. You can always push schedule. Schedule's your friend. It's tough. I mean, so when I bought the company from my parents, I asked my dad for advice, and the only thing my dad said was, sometimes you're a builder and sometimes you're a marriage counselor. And at the time, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And I've done a really good job of being like, here are the two choices. You guys arm wrestle about this later, and I'm not going to get in the middle of it. But we are counseling people, and you are dealing with people's emotions with their biggest purchase of their life. And you do have to say, like, I'm sorry. And I'll tell you, and I don't think he would get upset because I'm not going to use his name. The builder I was talking to yesterday is building a house for people and dealing with real problems, and he told them no to begin with. And the next day when he got to his office, they were standing in front of his door, and they were like, we really want to work with you. And they pulled at his heartstrings, and he told them yes, and now he's paying for it. Because he knew not to work with them, and he let them talk him into it. And he was like, I knew darn well that that was a mistake, and that's why I told him no. And then they talked me into it. So following your gut is by far the best thing you can do. Yeah?
At what point do you provide an estimate of cost? Like during the
We'll get there.
process?
Yeah. So first step with us is a Zoom call. I don't go out and look at things to start out with. Sometimes it comes across as slightly impersonal, but especially if you're in the Kansas City market, that's a 2-hour drive if it's not a day that I'm there. In our market, it might be an hour's worth of driving out and back. It's a digital age. COVID helped with this. Everybody's okay with Zoom calls. And we have 20 questions that we ask every client in that meeting. And I just start the meeting by saying, it's nice to meet you guys. Just so you know, I have 20 questions I ask in every one of these meetings. It kind of guides the conversations. We'll cover just about everything that we need to talk about. Feel free to ask questions. It's a give and take process. But by me saying, I'm going to ask you questions, it sets it up as, I'm here to interview you. Now it feels like you're trying to win me as the builder. And as manipulative as that is, it does put the ball in my court, and it makes it seem like it's going to be my decision. And I know darn well that that makes people feel like, oh, well, we want to work with this guy. When did it become we're interviewing to work with him? And it helps. I'll give you the 20. Oh. The first question, is there anything I should know? That might be half the phone call sometimes. They'll tell you. Sometimes it's, I need to be able to have coffee by myself in the morning before I see the kids. Sometimes it's, we have a kid with special needs, we need wheelchair access. Sometimes it's, this is going to be our last house, whatever it may be. But that part of the conversation can be quite long. Have you ever built before? That's a telling one, because they're going to tell you all about how bad it went or how good it went, and you get to learn. What are you looking for in a contractor? I think is a good one, because a lot of times they haven't thought about it, and you can get them to think about it, and you can always revisit. How long have you lived in your current home? And the next one's, I'll put them all up. Whoop. How long are you planning on staying in your next home? If you've only been in your current home for a year, because you bought a place to then find a lot and build a home, you probably don't know what you hate about your current home. And so it might not help with our design process that much. But if you've been there for 20 years, every complaint you have about that house, I need to write down and make sure that the architect's aware of it. And then if you're only planning on staying in the custom home we're going to build for you for 3 years, I don't think you should build a custom home, because you're not going to get your money back. And I'm going to say that in this meeting. And we've had people come to us and go, really? Yeah, really. Because you'd be better off buying a spec home from somebody and trying to get back out of it in 3 years. It's not going to be the right investment. Now, if you know that and you're okay with potentially not making your money back, then that's fine. You can see that we're on question number 8, and that's the first time that I've said anything about budget. Starting with budget's uncomfortable for people. By this point, we've gotten through to the point of what's the program for the house, what do you need, that sort of thing. But you can also see that we didn't get all the way through the call and not talk about budget. If you don't know what their budget is by the end of the first meeting, you have no idea whether or not you even want to have a second meeting with them. And that's super uncomfortable. Hey, buddy. And I will tell you that one of the best things that I've learned is from that dork. Everybody say hi, Steve. If they don't want to tell you, if they don't want to tell you what their budget is, you can say, well, what's a number that scares you? Because they'll tell you what number scares them. And I will tell you that I also gave this talk in Toronto this year, and somebody raised their hand and said, what if they don't know what their budget should be? And I hadn't considered it from that standpoint. If they're really wishy-washy, you can drive the conversation about budget. You can say, and what we generally say is, cost per square foot is a horrible metric. What does it cost to buy a bag of groceries? Depends on what you put in a bag of groceries, right? You could put nothing but ramen or nothing but steak. Those are two different bags of groceries. But what we do is I have a Word doc that has the last 4 houses that we built in it, and there's a paragraph write-up, a picture, and a few stats about that house. I can bring that up then and go, here's how much this house cost, and here's a couple facts about it. Here's how much this house cost, and here's a couple facts. And we can run through it, and I can go, does that seem like we would fall within your price range if you're, I mean, this house is similar to what you're talking about. It's kind of the same style, it's about the same size, and it's about the same kind of performance. And they spent between 1.2 and 1.6. Is that something that would be okay with you guys? Yeah, that'd be fine. And then we at least know that they're understanding the consequences of what they're talking about, sort of thing. But they don't get through the first meeting without making a commitment to at least understanding the kind of money that they're going to spend. Because if they don't have the money to spend, it doesn't matter, right? It's great that we want to build houses for people and that we want to do jobs for people, but we also have to make money so that we can stay in business.
If they're far off on the money after 8, you just shut the Zoom call down at that point?
I try to be polite about it, but there are some times where it's very clear. Like I had a phone call this year with somebody that they had $350,000 and they wanted a 4,000 square foot house. I can't pour the concrete and put the driveway in for that much. That was a clear conversation, and I explained it to him, and I said, you know, if we're that far off, there's really no other conversation that we need to have. Like, no offense, it was a pleasure to meet you guys, but there really isn't any place that we're going to mesh together. And just so you know, you're not going to be building a custom home with anybody in our market. You're going to have to buy an existing home. And they were like, really? And I was like, I can't guarantee that there isn't somebody that's going to tell you that you could, but I don't think you can buy even the materials for double that for what you're talking about, or have them show up in the concrete and all that. I said, what I would recommend you do is talk to 3 or 4 other builders and just get ballpark numbers from them and then see where you have to go from there before you get too excited about anything. And I said, if you need something else, feel free to call, but I'm going to tell you there isn't a situation where we would be able to build you a house for that.
Do you charge for that initial Zoom call, and could you put that on your website
Yeah.
as a pre-bidding application questionnaire?
The first call is free. The Zoom call is free. The reason I don't put the 20 questions on our website is because I want the nuance of the answers face-to-face or on the Zoom call. I don't want them just to type them out. I have a build show video about this from a few years ago, and we have a current client right now that before our first phone call sent me the answers because he had watched the video, and we still had to go through all of it because I wanted to have a conversation about it. Other contractors and why aren't you working with them is a big one too, because very quickly they'll say, oh, we're not working with that guy because he's cost plus. So am I. We're not going to work with you either then, I guess. Like, it disqualifies things quickly. We're getting to know as quick as possible again, right? No, it's not 20 questions anymore now either. It's 19. 19 is kind of the most important one to me after budget. How are you going to measure if it's successful? If you don't know what their success looks like, how are you going to at least cater part of your job to make it successful for them? That success may be it has to be done by October 1st. It may be we cannot spend more than $1.4 million at the absolute worst case scenario. It may be we need to be in by this day so that our daughter can have a graduation party there. It may just be we have to be able to see the pond from the dining room. But if you don't know that and you don't hear that from them, you're going to be headed down a path that's your perceived goal, your goal, and the architect's goal. And we're building the house for them. Like it's all of us have to have our goals met for it to truly be a success. So you need them to be able to verbalize what their goal is. We built a house for some people when I worked for my dad when I was like 18. It was a SIPS project, and we were setting panels, and we set the panels on the first day, and the client showed up at the end of the day while we were cleaning up, and she walked into the dining room, and she said, "Oh, isn't there a window here?" And I said, "Karen, there's not a window there. Is there supposed to be a window there?" And she said, "Well, I didn't know if there was a window here or not, but I thought we were going to be able to see the pond from the dining room." And I said, "No, ma'am." And she was like, "We're going to have to put a window there." She was like, "The whole reason to put the dining room on this side of the house was to be able to see the pond." She was like, "The whole reason we put the house on this side of the property was to be able to see the pond." And I was like, her whole goal for this building and this end of the house was to be able to see the pond, and nobody that worked for Aarow Building knew that. Nobody had had a conversation with her about it. Like, what were her goals? And it cost us like 8 weeks worth of schedule because we had to wait for stuff. Had there been a conversation about what are your goals, we would know that. Yes. Yeah, so we want to know what phase, like if they already have a set of plans, is the architect still working with them? Are they staying on board? Can we ask the architect to add the details that we want in the plans to get it done to ensure energy efficiency? Are they keeping the architect on board so that we can call and ask questions during the process? We also, on 17, if they don't have a design or they don't have an architect, are you willing to talk to architects that we've worked with before and that we like? Those sorts of things. Still under contract just means at what phase are you getting rid of them? Are they available? Thankfully, both Kansas City and Columbia tend to be a call the builder first market for some reason, which is great. Because then we can go, here are 4 architects that we like. Or, have you talked to Steve yet? Steve and I have, I think, 7 things open right now together. So, is there another one up here? Okay. This is like a standalone slide. We don't do the good, better, best thing. We talk about like this is the right way to do it, and that's kind of all that we talk about. When you say we can do it like this, or we can, and it's good. There's another way, and then there's a good, better, best. All the clients here are sufficient, more costly, and even more costly. And I think that that's a problem in our industry, that it just complicates things, and I've never heard a client go, "Oh, I just want the most expensive version," unless they're the person that's like, "Oh, I'm going to drive a Porsche and I'm going to have 4 Rolexes," and that's a rare client in my market, at least. That's a rare client for us. The good, better, best thing is sufficient, more expensive, more expensive. And I think it's the wrong way. And we did it that way for a long time, and that was all that we butted our heads up against, was people never wanted to do it the best way. And so we've started saying, this is the right way to do it. And it's saved us a ton of headaches. We haven't had as many callbacks. We've had more efficient builds. We've had greater success. Our carpenters are happier. He's shaking his head. Okay, I'm going to run out of time. So we'll go quick here. After that meeting, you get a copy of our pre-construction services agreement, a copy of our contract, and a copy of our construction expectations document. This is like a 17-page document that says, like, this is what it's like to build a house with us, so that you understand what it's going to be like, so that you understand, hey, if you are on job site and you want to talk to somebody, don't talk to the plumber, talk to the site supervisor or the PM. You can expect, let's see, you can expect to be able to reach your PM during these hours. You can expect that if you send an email, you'll get an email response within this amount of time. And it may just be, I don't have the answer yet. And I think it's been updated since this, actually. It has been. But it's all about informing the client what the process is going to look like so that they know. We've talked about most of this in the first Zoom call, but by putting it in writing, I'm ensuring that they're informed about what it's going to be like, right? Take a picture of this one if you're taking pictures, by the way. In the very first email that I send them is, you're not going to get to hold back money, and how we're going to judge visible defects in our work and those sorts of things. We're setting standards from day one. That's a big deal. Also, as an aside, we hold the initial deposit, or at least part of it, all the way through to the end of the job. So at final walkthrough, the clients get a check back. There is no retainage so that they have something to hold over our heads. And at the first couple times we did that, it was a little difficult for the clients to wrap their head around, and I started explaining it as like, you're financing this project, not me, so we need a little bit of money on hand to cover all those last little bills. It's not a huge deal. As soon as the job's over, we'll write you a small check back. Hopefully it's less than $2,000 or $3,000. We just have to have a little bit of cash flow, same way we did through the whole job. And as soon as I started saying it nonchalantly like that to the clients, they've all just been like, oh, okay. And now we're not in a situation where clients are like, no, I'm holding that last $25,000 till you come back and fix that dent in that one door. And it's changed the way that cash flow is moving through our business, and it's made a lot of headaches go away. We always take care of everything. We've never had clients end the job where they don't want us to come back and fix something or anything. It's changed the way we've done it. So if you can figure out a way to talk to your clients, I realize that doesn't work with bank clients as much, but we can have that conversation separately. So if they still say yes through all that, again, PowerPoint has AI. We're going to keep going here. Then we enter a pre-construction contract. It does cost. It covers, it outlines all of our responsibilities. We're going to have a scope of work. We're going to sit through all the design meetings. We're going to apply all of our energy efficiency, all of our durability standards. It's way easier when we're working with Steve because he and I speak the same language. We have all the same ideas. We have a decade of working together, and a lot of his details are my details. A lot of my details are his details. We don't have to argue over things. He doesn't draw a monster. We don't have to build a monster. Even yesterday, the framer was texting my PM, our construction manager, and I, pictures saying, the header's it's gonna have to stick up above the head plate if the window heights are all gonna be the same. And I didn't even respond because I was like, there's no way that that's the way it is. It's a Steve drawing. I know damn well that the header is not gonna be like that. I'm just gonna sit here and wait for the framer to go, I'm sorry, I did the math wrong. And 2 hours later, I looked at the plans wrong, I did the math wrong, and it's gonna be fine. Like, it's different when we're working with Steve, but when we're working with other architects, we're applying tons of details. We're applying lots of building science. We're dragging people along. So we're sitting in design meetings. We're saying, no, you can't do that. We're checks and balances. If you make it 500 square feet bigger or you add a turret, we have to have turret budget in the budget. We have to have a budget for a $10,000 stove instead of a $5,000 stove. All those things, we're sitting through it. We're organizing septic designs. We're organizing the engineering, structural engineering. Then we're providing a proposal. And we don't ever really sell the pre-con side of things as you're paying for a proposal. We sell it as we're doing all this work so that we can get all of the information into one place so that then we can get you a proposal. Does that make sense?
What do you charge for that and how?
Why do we charge for it?
What do you charge and how?
So it's a bit of a ballpark. I do it as a fixed fee thing. It's the only part of our business that's fixed fee. And part of the reason we do that is just because for so long we didn't, and now it seems still like gravy. Like it's still a bonus, even though we're 6 or 7 years into doing it. Most jobs were less than the architect, depending on the architect. I would say that we're about half of what the architect charges most of the time, just because I know what Steve charges. I know what most of the other architects that we work with charge. because we have about half the amount of time in it. And it ends up being 2 or 3 team members sometimes. I'm working on one aspect of it, which is most of the time scope of work and gathering some of the numbers. A PM's working on gathering some of the numbers, and then our construction manager's working on site research and stuff like that. So like we have 60 hours tied up in a simple house in a neighborhood that we already know the lot, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What percentage of that move forward with you versus saying at the end of that construction, like, okay, we're gonna wait or we're gonna go
Yeah.
to someone else?
What percent moves forward is the question. I would say right now, for people that actually sign a pre-con contract, because we have had a few that we've offered and they didn't sign a pre-con, we're probably at the 90% close rate from pre-con. It's dating. We don't offer it to people that we don't want to work with for the most part. And I would say that we do have one right now in pre-con that they're not going to get offered a contract.
And do you ever, do you ever get a client that comes in fully baked and you don't necessarily have to do the pre-con, you just go right into the building?
Yeah, so the question is, do you ever get somebody that's like fully ready to go? We do. It's tough, and then you have to make a decision on how to handle it. We do have a client right now that came to us with a like 90% set of plans, architect that we're super familiar with. They were working with another builder, and the other builder was like, I can't get there on your timeline. I want to do this job. And he was trying to make it work, and he kind of called and said, I'm walking away from this job because of schedule. Don't panic or anything. And I was like, okay. Architect called me and said, do you want to look at this? I was like, sure. I met with the clients. They seemed great. And so what we did was I said, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to do a pre-con. I'm going to give you a broad ballpark, like a $700,000 ballpark, and we'll sign a construction contract and just understand that the first 6 weeks of this is basically going to be our pre-con contract. We'll develop a scope of work. We'll finalize the plans with the architect. And at the same time, our construction management side of things, Brandon's got the driveway started. We got the pool company started and site surveys in the works, and we're getting power and construction started on a couple things that we know are fixed cost or that we know the cost of, and we don't have a set of plans finalized yet, but the clients are fine with how we structured it. That's the only time we've done that in probably 7 years, though.
Are you doing that as a cost plus? Are you doing that as a cost item, or is that a deposit towards your fee?
So that is a separate cost from construction. We also don't give it a credit back. A lot of people give it a credit back, and I'm like, why would you do that? You're getting paid for your time. Why would you then not get paid for your time by giving it back? We're gonna call it here. Hold on. So there's my takeaways. We'll finish with questions. We really have like 5 minutes left. So anybody else?
Do you do all of the vetting yourself within your company?
I do. So when I say like Brandon runs our company, Brandon runs project managers, personnel. He's in charge of day-to-day operations. He's on sites every day. I am in charge of pre-con, sales, meeting clients. The only clients that I don't sell to are people who were previously Brandon's clients. I will say that when I was on vacation for a long time this summer, I got back and we left a new construction project. I was riding around with Brandon for the day, and he pulled into a driveway, and I was like, what are we doing? He was like, this is an Aarow Building job. I thought you might want to see it. And I was like, ooh, that's weird. That was the first time in my entire career that we started a job that I didn't know about, and it felt weird. Yeah?
I'm just curious, what are issues that you run into with architects that
Oh, that's a long question.
some of the basic ones that if they were to do better would run smoother with your process?
So the question was, what are the issues with architects? I would say that the biggest issue with architects is all centered around not asking for pricing or them quoting pricing and things like that. It's the communication around numbers for the most part. We've weeded out working with those architects for the most part. But I'll tell you that we had an architect that we used to work with, brought me in on a job. He was like, hey, these people want this addition and this renovation. It's a great project. He showed me the set of plans. He was like, they're nice people. You're going to love them. You're going to mesh well with them. Your personality get along great. I was like, that's awesome. He sent an email to all of us, set up a meeting. I was like, Brian, what is their budget? And he was like, I don't know. was like, dude, you just drew an addition and a remodel with a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom and a change of driveway and landscaping, and you don't know what their budget is? And he was like, well, I just drew what they wanted. This is not like the only time that this happened with that architect or other architects. I went to talk to the people, and I was like, okay, so what are you guys thinking? Like, where is your budget lie? And they're like, we're wanting to spend like maybe 40 or 50K. I was like, that's great. You have a $500,000 set of drawings. And they're like, what? And I was like, the plans that are sitting in front of you are going to cost close to $500,000 minimum. And they're like, we paid $15,000 to have these drawings done. I'm like, yep. I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you that.
That's the pitch for pre-construction, why it's important.
And that's why you should have a builder involved to sit there and go, this is going to cost this is going to cost, and you don't have to be spot on. You don't have to say this is going to cost $500,000, but you do have to sit there and say, this is way more than $40,000, And that's the challenge, because I realize when you say this is going to cost $500,000 and it ends up costing $6 million, all they heard was $500, But you as the builder have to say, well, it's going to cost north of $15,000, but it might not cost as much as $20,000, and hope that they have enough respect for the process to understand you're giving them ballparks, and that's part of the big problem with sitting in on pre-con. You have to be confident enough in your numbers that you can speak up. The other challenge is whatever number they hear first is the number that you have to fight against. So if the architect says, well, you can build for $200 a square foot, and then you come through the door and you go, $400 a square foot is where we start, and that's the minimum, they're going to go, well, this guy's way too expensive. And you're going to go, no, the architect has no touch with reality. And the architect has no idea. So those are the biggest challenges that we face with architects. The architects that we choose to work with, that we push work to, that bring work to us, now are kind of all on the same page, and we don't really have those issues anymore. It's kind of great for us. But we've got 2 decades of fostering relationships and buying coffee and saying nice things and trying to build relationships, because that's as much as great professionals are great professionals, but this is a relationship business more than most, I think. So, anybody else? Yeah.
How do you cultivate those relationships with architects that you haven't necessarily worked with before?
Yeah. So coffee calls are great. I've had the luxury of, I've presented to the AIA a couple times, and getting to stand in front of the room and seem like you're the professional that knows what you're talking about helps. It's not available to everybody, but it does help. I would tell you that asking other builders to make introductions is helpful too. I'm a big colleagues, not competitors guy. If you listen to Travis Brungart talk, he talks about that constantly. I feel the exact same way. There is plenty to go around, and acting as if we're all competitors is the wrong way to look at things. That's why we're here doing build show stuff. We're colleagues. You should help other people. If you think somebody does good work, you should try to help them find work, that sort of thing. We're really lucky that I have an architect friend who works for a commercial construction firm in their quality department. So he doesn't do design work, and he knows like 25 residential architects in the Kansas City market. And like over the years, he's just been like, hey, have you met? We should have lunch. And it's just like one by one, like once a month, I get to meet a new architect through Matt. And he's just like, hey, we should go and talk to this person because I think you guys would get to, and it's just been amazing for us. And then maintaining that relationship. Hey, don't forget there's a BS and Beer event this month. I'm gonna give a talk. You guys should stop by. Or, hey, this house is almost finished. Do you guys wanna come by and see it? We're gonna have lunch there this week. And then it's like, well, our team's eating lunch and the architect stops by to have lunch, those sorts of things. It's all personal relationships. Thank you, guys.